Thank you for joining me today. We're going to be looking in Exodus now, getting into the life of Moses. Our hymn today is called Hear Us, O Lord, in Time of Need.
Hear us, O Lord, in time of need, and let thy name our case defend. Grant that our efforts may succeed, and victory on our steps attend. On horse and chariot some rely, and some in numbers make their boast. Our trust is in the Lord Most High. His favor is itself a host. In His salvation we rejoice and lift our banner in His name. Lord, hear our supplicating voice, and put our haughty foes to shame.
All right, verse 4, Spread over us thy sheltering wing, and bless with peace our favored land, that we may still thy glory sing, by whose protecting care we stand. And of course, where we're at now in Exodus chapter 1, you have Egypt. And so, Exodus 1:1, these are the names of the children of Israel who came to Egypt. Each man in his household came with Jacob. Goes through all the sons. Verse 5, all those who were descendants of Jacob were 70 persons, for Joseph was in Egypt already. And Joseph died, and all his brothers, and all that generation. But the children of Israel were fruitful, and increased abundantly, multiplied, and grew exceedingly mighty, and the land was filled with them. Things were actually pretty well. During that time of famine, when Pharaoh tells Joseph, it's like, bring your family down here. Pharaoh says, I will give them the best of the land. And that was Goshen. He wasn't giving them the leftovers, like he was giving them the best. And so the children of Israel were fruitful, they increased abundantly, multiplied, grew exceedingly mighty, and the land was filled with them. Now there arose a new king over Egypt who did not know Joseph. Time has gone by, significant amount of time, actually, and there's a new leader. And anytime there's a new leader, things can get better or things can get worse. In the adult class here in North Ridgeville, we've been looking at the times of the kings. And a lot of the kings were wicked. Every once in a while you got a good one. To go from Saul, and then you had a new leader with David. But eventually David passed. Then you have Solomon. Eventually Solomon passed, and you had a new king, Rehoboam. And on it goes. Kingdom divided, needless to say. Well, Jacob had actually blessed Pharaoh in Genesis. But that good Pharaoh has passed, time has gone by, and now there's a new leader. There's a new leader. There's a new king. And that king I think the point of he did not know Joseph is he didn't like the Hebrews. That's the point. He had probably heard of Joseph. It's that he didn't care for the Hebrews. So he said to the people, look, the people of the children of Israel are more and mightier than we. Come, let us deal shrewdly with them, lest they multiply, and it happen in the event of war that they also join our enemies and fight against us, and so go up out of the land. Therefore they set taskmasters over them to afflict them with their burdens. And they built for Pharaoh supply cities, but the more they afflicted them, the more they multiplied and grew. And they, that would be the Egyptians, were in dread of the children of Israel. And so things are deteriorating. And they're deteriorating quickly with this new leader in charge. But one of the things that impressed me is that the Hebrews, the Israelites, they're still having children. Sometimes when things go badly in society, sometimes couples actually make a decision not to have kids, not to have children, and they'll say things like, "Well, we don't want to have children in a society like this. That society is just so wicked and so evil and just so horrible. We don't want to expose our children to that." And if everybody did that, well, the world would be even more wicked than it already is. And so I admired, I appreciate the fact that even though things were going badly, and that this is the beginning of slavery for Israel, that even though they're going into slavery, they're still having children. And they're multiplying. And so the Egyptians, there at verse 13, so the Egyptians made the children of Israel serve with rigor. Excuse me. Pardon me. They made their lives bitter with hard bondage and mortar and brick and all manner of service in the field. Right? At first, they just set taskmasters over them. That's the beginning of slavery. But then it starts getting worse. And so in mortar and brick and all manner of service in the field, all their service in which they made them serve was with rigor. So the king of Egypt, when he sees, it's like they're still multiplying. He spoke to the Hebrew midwives, and looks like the two who were over the midwives were Shiphrah and the name of the other Puah, and he said, "When you do the duties of midwife for the Hebrew women and see them on the birth stools, if it is a son, then you shall kill him, but if it is a daughter, she shall live." So now we're starting to talk murder, genocidal sort of things. But the midwives feared God and did not do as the king of Egypt commanded, but saved the children alive. And this is the account where, he calls for them and says, why have you done this? And they, I personally think, came up with the line of, as they say, the Hebrew women are a little more lively. And so God dealt well with the midwives, and the people multiplied and grew mighty, and so it was because the midwives feared God that he provided households for them. And at that point, Pharaoh commanded all his people, saying, "Every son who is born you shall cast into the river, and every daughter you shall save alive." And so those midwives, as you think about the Lord works in mysterious ways, like how is God going to deliver his people? And the reason that God delivers his people is because if you kill all the boys, well, in just a generation or two, you've wiped out the Israelites. Now, how is the seed ever going to be born? See, the devil, all through Scripture, the devil always tries to keep the seed from coming. That's why the babies in Bethlehem are killed. Right? The devil does not want the seed, Jesus, to live. And so the devil is behind all this. And so what's the answer? You need those midwives to fear God. And I'm sure they were scared of Pharaoh. I'm sure they feared Pharaoh as well. But they feared God more. At the very least, you would say, I think you would say that. All it says is they feared God. And so they did not obey the commandment. You might think about the New Testament. Should we listen to man or listen to God? Well, if Pharaoh's commands do not contradict God, it's like, okay, you want us to make, eventually we're going to be making bricks without straw. Okay, we'll give it a shot. We're serving with rigor. We're doing what you want us to do. We're building the supply cities. We're doing all this stuff. But at a certain point, if it starts contradicting God's will, we fear God. And you have to disobey the king's command. And that's what they do. And God bless them because they did that. So, back to our hymn, "Hear us, O Lord, in time of need." And Israel is in time of need. And so we've looked at chapter 1, chapter 2, Moses is born. Appreciate you. Hope you have a good day. Join us tomorrow for another portion of our daily praise.